BeakerBeat.
It's Monday, November 7th, 2011. In this week's BeakerBeat, could the looming medical device tax send companies packing for the Great White North? We'll take a look, eh? Plus, Pfizer may soon lose its top dog designation, so who will be the new king of pharma? And as Veterans Day approaches, we find that many of our country's defenders are finding success in the life sciences industry after they leave the military. All that and more in this week's edition of BeakerBeat, brought to you by Life Technologies. To learn more about Life Technologies, visit their company webpage on Beaker.com.
Hello everyone, welcome to this week's edition of BeakerBeat. I'm Mike Justice, thanks for tuning in. It is Veterans Day here in the United States, so we're here at Arlington National Cemetery to honor our veterans. But first, here's this week's top story.
With the looming 2.3% sales tax under President Barack Obama's Healthcare Reform Act, device makers are looking for ways to offset their losses. A new study shows that moving operations could help companies save millions as long as they like snow. According to a study by the Boyd Company, the tax would not apply in Canada, so Toronto's attractiveness to U.S. medical device makers would go up, nor would the tax apply in places like Sioux Falls, South Dakota, the least expensive U.S. location on Boyd's list, because no corporate income tax applies in that state. The study analyzes operating costs specific to the industry in 55 cities in the U.S., Canada, Mexico, and Latin America, and is scaled to a hypothetical 175,000 square foot production plant employing 325 workers. So, for example, a device manufacturer would save $75 million in operating costs over 25 years by locating in Toronto instead of San Jose, California, the most expensive site listed in the report. Generally speaking, both Canada and the U.S. beat other regions thanks to the European economic crisis, piracy in China, and high transportation costs. In terms of operating costs, Toronto is listed as number 8, cheaper than San Diego, but more expensive than, say, Vancouver and Montreal. Plus, Toronto is home to more than half of Canada's 1,200 medical device companies, and it's perhaps more similar in feel to an American city than any other up north. As for South Dakota, they are already looking to take advantage of the situation. State economic development officials and representatives of 8 South Dakota cities are attending a Minnesota conference hoping to recruit device companies to move there. The study claims the 2.3% sales tax represents, quote, a jobs killer and a driver for the industry to seek lower-cost sites for production, end quote. One of the authors of the study also said he doesn't expect the lobbying effort to eliminate the tax will be successful. It's not all bad news, however. The study claims the healthcare reforms benefit the industry by giving many more Americans access to procedures such as knee and hip replacements. The reforms and an aging population have combined to make medical devices a growth industry. Where it will grow remains to be seen.
So tell us what you think about this story or any story that you see in today's show. Very simple, click on the orange button below me, a box will pop up, type in your comment, send it to me. I promise I'll read and respond to every one of them.
And we're putting our money where our mouth is when we say we want to hear from you. We want you to send us a photo of you or you and your coworkers together while surfing Beaker.com or watching BeakerBeat. Just like this one by Jeremy, although you don't have to look that ridiculous. We're giving away 2 prizes at the end of the year for 2 categories. One for the most people in the photo, easy. Another for the most creative photo. What are the prizes, you ask? Is it a pony? No. A massage from Jeremy? Thank goodness no.
A new Porsche!
Hey, I'm not Bob Barker. Although I did spay and neuter my pets. Don't worry, it's a surprise, but it'll be worth it. So start snapping those pictures and send them to BeakerBeat at Beaker.com.
What we're looking at now is Arlington House. This was the original structure here, Robert E. Lee's house, for 30 years before the Civil War began. During the war, thousands of dead were brought here and buried here, and it was the beginnings of what is now Arlington National Cemetery.
The thing about being number 1 is, it doesn't last. Not in sports, entertainment, or even business, as Pfizer may soon learn. According to Evaluate Pharma, after Lipitor falls off patent, Pfizer will drop from the top of the pharma world. Sanofi will grab the crown thanks to its $20 billion merger with Genzyme and should remain there until at least 2016. Swiss drug maker Novartis will be next, with Pfizer falling to 3rd. Pfizer will be the only U.S. drug maker in the top 5 by 2014, according to Evaluate Pharma's analysis. GlaxoSmithKline and Roche will take 4th and 5th places, while Merck will drop to 6th. The list is based on Evaluate Pharma's outlook for key drugs. Sanofi's spot depends on sales of Genzyme's rare disease therapies.
Every day here at Arlington National Cemetery, there are up to 30 funerals for those who served their country.
The FDA wants input from the healthcare industry and the public on the efficacy of its medical device labeling system. The agency is opening up a 60-day public comment period, slated to end January 3, 2012, on the MedTech labeling system, hoping to determine the most effective device labeling format. The goal is to standardize medical device labeling across the U.S. Sanofi is once again shuffling its workforce. The French drug maker is reorganizing research operations in the U.S. and trimming its sales force for the 2nd time in a year. Just how many job cuts are coming is still undecided, but sales staff will find out in December, while research workers learn of their status in January. Sanofi plans to offer buyouts and try to fill vacant positions before resorting to layoffs. The company now has about 4,500 salespeople all told. The research reorganization is part of CEO Chris Viehbacher's long-term plan to restructure early drug testing and later-stage patient testing around hubs in different countries. Sanofi, the world's fourth largest drug maker by revenue, has about 18,000 employees in North America. Medtronic has no plans to spin off its spine unit to boost its shareholder value. CEO Omar Ishrak said the different pieces of Medtronic together add value, but then he admitted the company is currently evaluating a possible spin-off of its physio-control division. So for now, it appears Medtronic will not follow Abbott Labs' lead in breaking up into smaller companies. 3 congressmen have introduced a bill to reduce regulation aiming to help boost medical device innovations. The Medical Device Regulatory Improvement Act is intended to streamline the FDA's regulation of devices and to help get new products to the market quicker. One change would involve making conflict of interest regulations less stringent. Another would have an outside entity conduct a thorough review of the regulatory processes. As many of you know, the average approval time for an application has almost doubled between 2007 and 2010, and pre-market approval time has increased by 75%. This has pushed many companies and investors to shift their operations and investments overseas. AdvaMed's Hope Fund panel has approved plans to build 10 clinics and 2 hospitals in China's Hubei province. It's part of a deal struck last year with the China Youth Development Foundation. Construction will begin soon, with completion expected this time next year. The FDA has given its okay for Abbott's next-generation Xience Prime drug-eluting stent system for the treatment of coronary artery disease. Abbott says Xience Prime features a delivery system designed for greater flexibility and more accurate stent placement. More quarterly reports now. Pfizer posted $3.7 billion in net income. That's up substantially from last year's $866 million, which was weighed down by $1.5 billion in acquisition and litigation charges. Sales grew by 7% thanks largely to Lipitor, which is in its last full quarter before it goes off patent. The cholesterol drug brought in $2.3 billion. U.S. sales dropped 3% to $6.9 billion, but overseas revenues grew 15%. Becton Dickinson saw fourth quarter revenues increase 9.5% versus the same period in 2010. BD reported full-year revenues of $7.8 billion, up 6.2% from last year, but net income for the quarter was down 24%. The company also saw growth in its medical, diagnostics, and biosciences units. A takeover offer worth $6.3 billion from Apax Partners and 2 of its Canadian pension fund partners has been approved by shareholders of Kinetic Concepts. Kinetic specializes in devices targeted at wound care, critical care, and bariatric markets. KCI pulled in just over $256 million in profit on $2 billion in sales in 2010. The deal is expected to be completed this month. Teleflex will sell its Telair International and Nordisk Aviation product divisions to AAR for $280 million. The deal, expected to be completed by year's end, is part of Teleflex's strategy to become a pure-play medical device company. That's according to CEO Benson Smith.
Behind us is the monument honoring the USS Maine, which went down in Cuba in 1898. Now here's this week's final story.
A recent article on military.com featured a naval lieutenant who found work as a spine consultant with Medtronic Spine and Biologics after he left the service. He is just one of many veterans who are finding success in the medical device industry. Several top companies are hiring former military talent for their sales, field service, management, engineering, and technical positions. Michael Moore, a fire controlman first class in the Navy, said, quote, "I found that the professional electronics training I received during my time in the service helped me immensely. I would not have gotten my job with Toshiba American Medical Systems as a field service engineer had it not been for that training." End quote. Medical devices has consistently ranked highly among industries that hire skilled veterans. It's an attractive career path that veterans may want to consider when planning their civilian transition. Kudos to those companies that give our veterans the opportunity once they finish their time defending our country.
Well, we hope you enjoyed our tour of Arlington National Cemetery. It's a beautiful place, and we highly recommend you visit yourself. Happy Veterans Day. If you know a veteran, thank him. That's it for this week's edition of BeakerBeat. I'm Mike Justice. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week. Sit, Beaker. Sit. Good dog.